Welcome, everybody, to our weekly political panel. I'm going to bring the panel in right now. Here's Louisa and here's Bill. How you guys doing this evening?
Good.
So, don't sound too excited. Try to keep it under control. So welcome, everybody. This should be a pretty exciting one. It's our third one, and I think we're having fun doing it. And hopefully the people that are watching them live and on replay are having fun too and learning some things along the way. Before I get into what we're going to start with tonight, which is ranking the county level political officials and giving them a grade, a report card, I just want to remind everybody that this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, we have a Clermont GOP Reform Roundtable that at present is going to be for sure Mr. Thomas and myself, and we're going to keep praying hard that either David Painter or Jeff Corcoran show up to this roundtable. Byron Baxter said he would, but he can't make it that date. Dennis Cooper will be there too. If I didn't mention Dennis, I apologize. So Bill, myself, and Dennis Cooper. Byron Baxter would do it, but he can't do it at that time. And David Painter and Jeff Corcoran, we're looking forward to seeing you there, guys. It's going to be a positive, productive event that I think it's not a trickery or anything. It's just a real discussion about what kind of reforms are needed in the Clermont GOP to keep our county red. Okay, so that's the 31st. So here's our topics today. The first one is going to be rating our county level elected officials. Then I'm going to rant for a second and see if Bill and Louisa agree with me about judges and their political views entering into their opinions. Briefly about the animal shelter, and then I'll talk again about the August 31st, or we'll talk again about the August 31st event at the end. Okay, so the big thing tonight is going to be rating our Clermont County elected officials at the county level. I think we will do other ones, assuming this works out and we don't train wreck or fall off a cliff or anything. We'll do a separate one for the legislative delegation. So these are what we're going to talk about tonight is we don't have, for example, Brian Tree on the corner isn't in there. Fortunately, I'm not able to personally assess the work of Brian Tree on the corner. But there's a few that aren't here, but we're going to assess the county level elected officials. And then we'll do other shows where we'll talk about the legislative delegation. And we'll probably do one on the judiciary also, talking about the judges. And so that's kind of our agenda, is to do this with the county level officials. And so I'm going to go forward here is when we do the assessments, we're going to do them, and we've done them independently, and I have not seen, the only person who has seen all of our assessments between the three of us is my wife, because she put the charts down. She put what we had sent to her into charts. So if there's any mistakes, it's her fault. If she made any mistakes transcribing things, but I have not seen Bill or Louisa's ratings. They have not seen my ratings. And there's three categories on which we're going to rate each of the officials: integrity, and that means things like honesty, transparency, and standing up to bad things; innovation, vision, great ideas and solutions; and then accomplishment, the ability to implement, see success, and deliver results. So those are the three categories that we're going to assess each candidate on. And before we jump into doing the assessment, I think that what we're going to do just before we jump into it is a crazy concept that the actual citizens are giving a scorecard to the politicians. And so you guys have any thoughts on, either of you have any particular thoughts on the momentousness of this occasion to actually be us giving a score, kind of a grade to our elected officials in the spirit of they work for us, we don't work for them?
I think we're going to upset a lot of people.
I don't know what you guys scored. I know what I scored them. But isn't it, have you ever seen, Louisa, in a central committee meeting that we ever did anything that was to kind of say to ask each elected official, how are you doing on A, B, and C? And then actually giving them feedback. Have you ever seen that happen with an elected official in the central committee?
I have been on the central committee for the last 6 years, and I can never recall any situation of that sort at all.
So I know that, Bill, you've worked from some different companies. When you've worked for different companies, did they have the concept of reviews that were done?
I mean, it's standard.
So,
I mean, it's the fact that we don't really do a great job of it in government. You look at Union Township. It historically, I have felt not just with the new trustees, but even with the previous trustees. One of the things I was hoping with the new board is they would do a better job evaluating their employees, and it was, obviously with Susan, that was a huge struggle. So, and then, she leaves with, half a year's worth of salary because her performance, people just don't understand. There has to be metrics in which you're measuring
right.
these, and you're evaluating. When you're in a regular corporation or a company, already what those metrics are going to be that they're going to measure your performance against.
Yeah.
In government, it's like that just doesn't exist. It's we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants, and everybody just gets participation trophies and raises. So it's disappointing when you peel away the onion and see what kind of work we do in evaluating elected officials. Obviously, they're not accountable to anybody other than the voting population.
Well, and in a county like ours, that's not even really an accountability, because ultimately they are generally going to end up unopposed in the election, or it's going to be a very small field, or it's going to be very non-competitive.
Right. Well, that brings up a point though, Chris. Hold on a second. So that's very important. In a company, if you evaluate them and you're evaluating you poor performance, you either go on probation or you lose your job.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. As an elected official, if you don't show up to work, I think county commissioner, when I checked into it, it was unbelievable. I don't remember the exact hour, but it was a handful of hours that they have to show up.
Once every 90 days.
Yeah, once every 90 days. I'm like, are you kidding me? And they draw $100,000, almost $100,000, or at $100,000.
Yeah.
Right around that range.
Yeah.
And if we were to grade every elected official an F, we'll hang up this video conference call and they will continue smiling and collecting their paychecks and continue business as normal, because nothing can be done until they're up at the polls. And then all of a sudden, they start bringing pizza to central committee meetings. They start bringing their drinks and hosting,
right.
And they reach out and
it's not generally substantive stuff that determines, we probably have different opinions here on the primary endorsement process, but hopefully we could agree that in a lot of cases, the decisions are not made based on substantive things. There's factions and groups and who does Linda Fraley support and all that sort of stuff. Wouldn't it be wild to do a midterm assessment on the central committee of elected officials at the county level to basically give them feedback on how you're doing and what type of steps should you take to do a better job, so that when it comes up for endorsement, when your term comes to an end, you're in a good position. Just for sake of time here, because I'm going to try to get us better on timing on these calls, because we like talking and hopefully we have some good information, but I think some people would like us to be a little shorter. I'm going to go back to the charts here. And the first candidate, I wrote down what order they are. So when I pop up the charts.
Chris, can I just suggest something, please? Could you please let the people know who the candidates are by name and what are the official elected official position in Clermont County?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what we're going to go through, and I'm going to come back to here, but there's going to be 10 candidates that we cover. The first 3 are going to be county commissioners. So David Painter, Claire Corcoran, and Bonnie Batchelor. The next, I put financial people, basically. Linda Fraley, the auditor, and Jeannie Zoomerly, the treasurer. Okay. And then law enforcement-ish people, Mark Jacolby and Chris Stratton. Chris Stratton is not in office yet. He is the chief deputy. There's 2 names on here that are not yet in office, but they will, because they're unopposed in elections coming. Then after Chris Stratton, the clerk of courts roles, which is Paul Camphouse for municipal, and will be Alan Freeman for common pleas. And then finally, what'll be the incoming recorder, which is Tim Rudd. So there's 10 county level positions. There are a few others, like maybe coroner might be the only one that we don't have on the list. But there are some other things, but those are the 10 that we're going to be going through. what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the charts here. When I hit the forward button, it's going to be the first one, which is David Painter. And it's going to be the first time that we all see each other's scores. What I'd like to do, guys, is basically when we pop up each one, kind of look quick at who gave them the highest rating and who gave them the lowest rating. And those two people talk first. Why did you give them the highest rating and why did you give them the lowest rating in a certain category? And let me run through them when I pop them up here. So if my wife put them down right on the charts, the first one's going to be David Painter. And here it is. So Bill gave him a B for integrity. On integrity, we've got a B, and a D. I gave him a D, okay? And then on innovation, an A, a C, and a D. And then on accomplishment, C, question mark, and an F. And the funny part is, this is going to show, before we started, I predicted, Louisa, that I was going to be the hardest grader. So we'll see if this holds up. Okay, so let's go on integrity. You guys both gave him a B and I gave him a D. You guys want to comment on why you gave him why you put him in a high regard on integrity, and then I'll comment why I put him in a lower regard.
So I gave him a B. B is for, it's good.
And by the way, a key thing's going to be here quick. Just why did you give him a B?
David has never lied to me, but then again, I know David Painter. It's kind of difficult for people out there that don't know these officials, to grade them. But he's never lied to me. He's always been forthright with me. That's why I gave him a B.
Okay. How about you, Bill, on integrity?
I think for me, same thing. My baseline for politicians is I have a baseline of expectations. So I base these grades off that baseline. Dave Painter's a politician. He does politician things. So I don't ding him for the politician things. But as far as integrity, I grade him high because, again, when you really peel away the onion and look at what the problems are, I don't feel that Dave Painter's a part of that problem. I think he actually is trying to fix things in this county. Okay.
And I gave him the lowest mark. My feeling is that when we went through COVID and we locked citizens out of the commissioner meetings for over a year, Bill, you and I just recently talked about Coffeegate, which we won't go in here. When I asked him a direct question and he wouldn't answer because he didn't like me, and had he answered, it would have gone away. Those are the current thing with the releasing the questionnaires for the judicial candidates. So I think those kind of things, I'm very much looking for demonstrated actions that show integrity. So let's go to innovation. And why don't I start first? Because so we just kind of rotate the order, so we don't always end with me. Assuming I'm the bad grader going to be on a lot of these, that we don't end with me being negative. On innovation, the biggest innovations, I think, were, taking over the animal shelter. That's been a disaster. I think the FC Cincinnati deal has been a disaster. And I think the Purina plant is, results in us. I don't know when it's going to open. So hopefully some year it's going to open, but it's way underperforms. I know that project out there, South Afton, that was a David Ubel project that he kind of inherited, but it's going to end up delivering, I think, about less than 25% of the promised job. So that's why I don't think in my view, it's not been very innovative. But why don't you guys, Bill, you gave him the highest mark. Why don't you comment on the high mark?
Yeah, I do believe that David Painter looks at growing Clermont County from a business aspect. I also believe that, and he's done things. So, the Purina plant will eventually get done. That's a huge development out in that area. And I do believe that Eastern Corridor is on the horizon of development. Again, he's one commissioner. You have two other commissioners. Out of the three of them, I graded him very high because I do believe he has the skill set to continue to grow the county out. Whereas, we're a relatively large county. We have 88 counties in the state. We're in the higher percentile. So, and our county's economically doing very well. I can tell you, based on, we'll talk about the other two, I do believe Painter has done a lot to support and grow that. You can't look at the animal shelter and say, I hate Dave Painter. Well, the animal shelter is under two other county commissioners as well. It's, that whole thing is a disaster in itself. And I know you believe that he's responsible for it, but from an innovation standpoint, there's a lot more to that in contracts and the way the other shelter was ran. And I've been through it with him in granular detail, challenging him on that. So I felt good with this, and that's where I graded him.
So why don't we go to accomplishment and start with you, Louisa? You had a question mark.
I really don't know what David Painter has accomplished. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I haven't seen any accomplishments. It's not, it's difficult. I had to put on my grading hat because it's difficult to figure out what exactly have they accomplished, because they don't give us, well, this is what we are going to do for the next 6 months, and then come back and we can review it and say, well, this is what we have accomplished. Right now, I really don't know what the commissioners in our county have accomplished. So I've got a question mark.
And then, Bill, you had you want to go or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Well, I gave him a F because I think that South Afton is going to deliver less than 25% of what was promised. I think the FC Cincinnati thing in Milford has been the disaster that's done almost nothing for us. It was supposed all these promises. I'm just tired of the promises. And I do think the animal shelter, it was his idea. So it was his brain trust and he was front and center on it. And at some point, I think he's going to have to come to grips with that. It's not worked out. And that's part of what I'd be looking for. That's an integrity thing too, is being willing to admit you made a mistake and figure out what I got to do now.
And
but go ahead. You gave him, you had your turn. Just for time, Louisa, it's Bill's turn.
So, I gave that's the lowest grade I gave him because I agree there have been some challenges. So I don't just look at one failure or one half accomplishment and grade on that. I looked at overall. For the many years he's been in that office, he has accomplished quite a few things. You look at the juvenile court building, that whole project, he had to step in and take that over. And so just to get it accomplished, I do believe that he's looked at areas of cutting budgets in the county. If you research it, you'll find that some people in this county don't like David Painter that work for the county because he is strict with the budget, and we need fiscally conservative politicians or elected officials. Sorry. So I do believe he has, and there's a lot more. For the sake of time, I won't go into all of it, but he has accomplished quite a bit. And I do feel like he's kind of on his own when you look at the schedule of the other two commissioners. So we could be doing so much better in this county. So I graded him a C.
So just for sake of time, as we go on to the other ones, I just want to keep us really focused on these. So I think it's a good discussion. But now that we get this first one, so it's getting our rhythm down on these. So the second one, when I hit that forward button, it's going to be Bonnie Batchelor. Again, we're all going to be seeing our scores for the first time. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Claire Corcoran. My bad. I read it wrong off my cheat sheet here. So Claire Corcoran. Okay. So we've got integrity. We're not going to have as much division on this. F, and a D. I gave Claire Corcoran the highest score for integrity.
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
I grade on a, very positive. Okay. And then on innovation, we got D, D, F, and D, and accomplishment D, F, and F. Why don't we lightning round this one as to you guys, you gave her Fs on integrity. Louisa, quickly, what's your Y and F?
I tried to actually put in an F minus, but it wouldn't allow me to do it.
Why? But why? What has she done?
You know what? I just feel like Claire carries the name and nothing else. I have not seen her do much for the county. Integrity, Corcoran name, unfortunately, says it all. I don't believe in her. I don't think she's honest. And just a simple fact that she was a visiting.
Okay. Just for time. I just want to lightning round these things.
Okay.
So that we don't end up being here 2 hours.
It's just her overall standing, the way she deals with people. That's what I gave her.
Bill, integrity.
She has on many occasions said, committed to me things and has failed to provide them. A quick example, open positions in the county for on boards. She point blank said she would start bringing them to central committee and announcing the open positions so that we can look at those and find, more honest and conservative people for those positions, or at least for them to apply. She's not done it one time. And then the whole lack of showing up to work.
Okay. when I put a D because I've not really dealt with her that much, but back when I got David Ubel off the ballot, if you remember that, Claire was not on my side, but she was Claire would not be a commissioner today, but not for me getting David Ubel off the ballot. Because if you remember, it ended up then being Tommy Bixler and her, and had Tommy Bixler chased absentees, he would have beat her. So but at the time, that's when I was running for auditor on the primary for Fraley's. That's why I gave her a D. So innovation. Why don't I let you guys go? You got D's and F's for innovation. Bill, you go first.
I think innovation, I'm going to do both innovation and accomplish for the sake of time. They go hand in hand. Again, I haven't seen anything out of Claire that has really moved the county forward. I'm reading a comment that she's fought the annexations of Batavia. I'm not I would love to see the facts on that. Please email that, because what I've looked at fighting those annexations, that is not the case. Claire isn't the sole person fighting that. So, but accomplishments and innovation, she's just been stale. Again, I'm engaged. I do records requests. I dig into this stuff. And I think the perception is Claire's a good commissioner because that narrative has been created. But if you do the records request, you do the digging, you'll find something a little different to those answers.
Okay. Louisa, you want to try to put together your innovation and accomplishment?
I haven't seen anything. I give her an F.
Okay. And I gave her I don't know why I gave her a D. I should give her F. She did come up with the sign that said "Fight the Madness," which is stupid, but it's they're never going to come up. The Corcorans are never going to come up with a sign that they would directly be associating themselves with. It was, for example, pro-Trump or pro-drain the swamp. The Corcorans are the swamp, so they can't.
Well, the sign's coming now, apparently. So
okay. So the next one, Bonnie Batchelor. Okay, so we've got integrity. So I give her so we're very widespread here. And, I like that we can kind of mix some of these up. I like what you did, Bill, to kind of combine some things if it helps us along here. So, Bill, look, like you gave her the highest marks. I gave her the lowest marks, and Louisa's in the middle. Let me start so we don't end up on a negative with me. I gave her an F on integrity because she outright lied to people that she was only going to run for one term. And I thought it was an absolutely dirty trick to try to get John Becker and John McGraw, younger men, to sign a pledge and a big ordeal that you were going to only run for one term. Okay. And she also lied about her party affiliation. So up through Reagan, she was a Democrat. And if you remember, John Becker is the one who exposed, she claimed she was never a Democrat. And then he went and got the records from the Board of Elections before they had computer records. And she had been a Democrat through all that time. So, and you can take that across here. I haven't seen anything innovative out of her, or I haven't seen any accomplishments out of Bonnie Batchelor. I think, I have a very low, I might have the lowest opinion of Bonnie because she's there because of her. At least Claire Corcoran's probably got some, crooked vision. Bonnie's just there for her own thing. So that's why I gave her low marks. Okay. Bill, do you want to go? Who wants to? We want to work up the chart. Louisa, you gave in the middle.
A D is for a D is for poor. She's a very nice lady. I have nothing against her. Again, these are very hard to kind of judge because I really don't know what they've done. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm on the committee and I really don't know what these commissioners have done. I mean, I've seen David, talk about a couple of things, but I don't see any accomplishments. With Miss Bonnie, innovation, accomplishment, I haven't seen anything. I mean, I'm just being honest. I've been on the Central Committee for 6 years and I haven't seen anything. So,
all right, Bill, you gave her the best marks. Go.
The only reason I didn't give Bonnie an A on integrity is because she ran for a second term after saying no. Otherwise, she would have gotten an A. Bonnie is I knew her before politics. I know people that have known her for many years when she was at Sanco. She's worked on the fire department for many years in Pierce. Bonnie's a community person. She definitely has the integrity. She may have made some mistakes and made some comments she shouldn't have, but I'm not going to ding her entire integrity over one mistake of something she said. On the innovation, I probably graded her one level lower. She probably deserves a B. You guys got to understand, Bonnie has driven a lot of grant money into helping the community. There's a lot of things: home safety repair, community alternatives, the CASC program, septic rehab program. There's been a lot that Bonnie has spearheaded to bring in grant money to help the community. She may not be driving business growth, but she has accomplished and has went out and reached out to drive monies to come into the county, to help communities. So I think you really need to do more research on how some of these programs that Bonnie has spearheaded to help the community.
I think we should do another thing sometime on these programs, because what I want to see out of politicians, we might have different things. I want to see them talk about how they can make government more efficient, less costly, better service to their customers as citizens. And I'm not against the grant things that you're talking about, but so in any event, in the whole line, the one term in the line about our political thing, that's kind of a deal breaker for me. Let's go on to the next one is Linda Fraley. Okay. So let's see what we got here. We got integrity. Okay. So Bill, you had low integrity, but good innovation accomplishment. That's like a Hillary Clinton score. Like, no integrity, but she can do a good job sometimes on stuff we don't want. You gave her Fs. So Loiza, you actually gave her the worst ratings, and I gave her the best ratings. Bill gave her the best ratings overall. Why don't you go first, Louisa, on why you gave her?
Well, a lot of our ratings that we are giving are obviously our personal relationship with some of these elected officials on the party. And, unfortunately, I don't believe in Linda Fraley. I don't think she's honest. I've seen some shady stuff that she has pulled in the Central Committee when we have tried to get people voted in, and, where she calls her cronies. I mean, she is one of the biggest cronies in Clermont County. And innovation, I can't rate these people because I don't know what they do in their job. Adam Bird, who is a state representative, has a newsletter that he puts out weekly. And we know exactly what he's fighting for, where it's going.
That's a great point.
We don't have anything yet to these people. I can't rate them because I have absolutely no clue what their job is and what they're doing. I don't know. But I give her an F because, and obviously the one on the end, a question mark, because I have absolutely no clue. I just know that, she spends a lot of time in Florida. That's what I know. So that's where I'm at.
So Bill, you gave her, you and I are in agreement. We're all in agreement on the integrity, FFF, okay? So Bill, let's kind of, you and I can get these, like, what's your, let's knock off integrity. So why'd you give her an F on integrity, Bill?
She has fooled everybody into believing that she is this very woman of integrity. For the longest time, I believed it too, to the point that she has the entire church over at First Baptist Church of Glen Estee conned into believing this stuff. So they support her candidates. All the big signs that were Michael Loeb's they were all Glen Estee Baptist people. And I would go up to the door and ask them, and it was, well, Linda Fraley, or my mom knows Linda Fraley, we go to the church and we were asked to put a sign out. But they had no idea who they were supporting, why they were supporting Mike Loeb. That's dirty business. I can tell you the church I go to, it's a Baptist church. They will not get involved in politics and just support candidates because you're a member. I think it's terrible. It's deplorable. And we all of us that were on the inside with Linda while she organized these coups, it's just disgusting to me.
So I gave her an F. I gave her an F because back in the nepotism stuff that was, I think, true. Okay. Like after 3 years, there was a unanimous Supreme Court opinion to release a letter that basically showed that she used her office for a Friends and Family Employment Bureau. And, that's the kind of stuff, the way she discarded her stepson, Troy Bushman, after her husband, unfortunately, passed away, is just repulsive. And so the kind of Christian virtue, one side of the thing versus when you actually see what goes on, it's kind of, as I think I've heard, maybe you guys agree, or people, it's the queen bee. She's the queen bee behind the curtain, running the show. And when you think what happens in the Central Committee, most of the time it's not going to happen if Linda Fraley's not in support of it. Now, real quick on innovation and accomplishment, Bill, I don't need to comment on mine. What were you going to highlight, or what would you highlight as some examples of her innovation and accomplishment? And we can move
So
on.
I had to be fair here. So as a person that owns properties in Clermont County and have for many years, I do a lot of business with the auditor's office, and the auditor's office is ran very well. I mean, I could sit here and lie and give her an F because I'm very disgusted by her behavior. But the reality is, and it may be her staff, it may not be Linda Fraley. I have no idea who's responsible, but she is the elected official over the auditor's office. The website has been top notch for many, many years. While other departments in this county weren't online, the auditor's office has always been online. They've always been electronic payment for many years. And I do believe Linda has accomplished a lot with the auditor's office. We have a great auditor's office. So I do think she's done great. I just think she has really good staff that covers her while she's in Florida.
So I think behind that, I wasn't going to say anything, but one of the things that I don't think is good that they do is they do predatory TIF valuations. So for example, she doesn't like TIFs because it routes money to and I apologize to people who don't understand what I'm talking about, but TIFs essentially hijack money that would go to the county and send it to a township. And so you have these weird things like the Walmart in Union Township is significantly valued less, which is a TIF, than the Walmart in River's Edge. And so if you go look at like for like, I think some of the valuations that happen in the auditor's office are there's a political motivation that they don't want TIFs, and it puts the townships in a very difficult position. Let's just keep rolling here. Jeannie Zoomerly, let's see what we got on Jeannie. Okay, I once again, I'm winning. Louisa, sometimes you're giving me a run for the money on some of these, but I'm generally winning the most negative. And then Bill's winning the most positive. So why don't I go first? So we'll end with Bill on a positive note versus me on a negative note. I want to be fair in the way we go through these, and I'll try to do the whole line. I'm still smarting from Jeannie Zoomerly, and there's still a federal lawsuit over her trying to get me arrested because I've requested some party financial statements that she was completely non-responsive to, and I sent the request to her office email, which by the way I don't think is illegal at all, and then she tried to have me arrested. So, and that's still a federal lawsuit, and that makes me unhappy because a lot of things, a lot of times it's me, it's just just answer the questions, just answer the questions, and it saves a lot of agony for everybody. But and I don't really know on innovation and accomplishment much. I put a question mark under accomplishment. I know we did, I guess we're getting the address changed back to a Clermont County address, but that's kind of why I did what I did. Louisa, why don't you go, because you're in the middle. Why did you give these scores to Ms. Zoomerly?
So C is fair. I think that Jeannie is a fair person. I've never had an issue with her. In actual fact, Scott had paid his property taxes over the period that his brother died and had forgotten to transfer money over to their bank account. Jeannie actually called and said, hey, your check bounced. And he explained, my brother passed away. We're in the midst of getting things organized. And she said, don't worry about it. When you get things done, just bring us another check. So I feel like she's a very fair person. Every time I've had dealings with Jeannie, I've never had a problem with her. But again, I don't know when she became treasurer, what did she have to change in the office? Were there things that she had to take over that were a mess? I have no clue. So innovation, I don't know if there's any innovation, and obviously accomplishment, I've got a question mark because I really don't know if what
have been the improvements. Okay, Bill, just for time here, I want to keep us moving. Bill, you gave her the best marks. Go ahead and give your layout of it.
Again, I work with the treasurer's office when it comes time to pay the bills. I think their treasurer's office is ran very well. Again, you have online payments. You compare it to some of the other departments in this county that stuff's not online, payments, bonds, not online. I think Jeannie runs a very tight ship. The one thing I will say about Jeannie, why I gave her an A for integrity, Jeannie's at work. And when she's on vacation, she's on vacation, and she's actually on vacation very, very rare. But she's always there with her staff working very hard. So from an integrity standpoint, I think she is at the top for me.
By the way, one thing, when she got deposed in this federal lawsuit I mentioned, one thing that became clear to me is that a lot of these elected officials are not a team. Okay, so they don't all love each other, and sometimes they may make it sound like that in the Central Committee meeting, but they come from different perspectives, so they're not all the same people. And to your point, Bill, I don't think Ms. Zoomerly spent any time in Florida other than a regular vacation, maybe, in that mix. So, okay, let's keep going here. The next one is Mark Turkalby.
Oh, woo.
Look at this. I graded Mark Turkalby the easiest, and the guy's trying to get me arrested every day. So they're looking for the angle for getting me arrested. But
wow.
So I gave Mark, I can't believe this. I'm going to revise my scores. Okay, you guys, Bill, let's start with you on Mark, your Mark assessment.
Yeah, I think out of the three of us, and no offense, Luis, because I know you've had quite a bit of experience with Mark, but I would have to say I have the most experience with Mark. I've known Mark outside of him being a prosecutor. I was friends with Mark about, I guess, I don't know, advanced acquaintances, you would call it, not really friends. We didn't hang out. So I know Mark on a couple of sides. Integrity, no. I'm sorry. Every time he's let me down, and I've been disappointed. He'll tell you one thing to your face, blow a ton of smoke up, and just to, I guess, get you focused on something else when he doesn't follow through with anything. Innovation, the prosecutor's office has been the absolute. I didn't think it could get worse than when Ferris ran it, and it's worse. Carol Rowe doing grand jury indictments, she's absolutely just, and I'm not, again, there are people that are in this county that work for this county, I'll leave it at that agree with me. Carol Rowe should not be in that position. And then accomplishment, tell me what the hell he's accomplished. Because when you look at, we have 2 Super Bowls in this county of crime. You had the Dorman case. Well, that got blown up. I mean, he said he was going to give, Dorman was going to get the needle. Well, that didn't happen. And instead, now we're paying for Dorman to sit in prison, soaking up taxpayer dollars. That guy should have been taken out, period. And any prosecutor with a solid prosecutor's office would have made sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And I'm sure he wants to blame it on Mike Ross and the sheriff's department, but there were other failures. The fact that he had to have a gag order, I just go down the list.
Just for sake of time, Louisa, anything you want to add? I want to speed us up here because I'm watching the clock. We're going too long. Let's go.
I tried to give him a G, but it wouldn't let me. Integrity, I mean, Mark, I don't trust him. I don't think he's honest. I think that Mark, when he's got a case that it's in front of the TV, he's all there. But when it comes to little cases to the people in this county, he doesn't give a shit. That's exactly what it is.
And just because you guys haven't said it, and I have to say you've said enough, is anybody that would employ political hack Brian Shrive as the lead civil prosecutor, a man that would be unemployable in any other county, says everything, and it's always the schemes, it's always the political bullshit. You really count on your. I've had people tell me this, that the most important thing in a county is that your prosecutor and your sheriff are at the head of the integrity pack. Okay. And because that's what controls, that kind of dictates how the rest of the political system is going to behave. Okay, so let's go on. The next one will be incoming Sheriff Chris Stratton. Okay, so you've got, so I gave him the worst on integrity, and we got a lot of question marks here. Bill, why don't you go first with just quick on just for time here, your assessment of Chris Stratton on the 3 columns.
He's never lied to me. He left the Central Committee which was an integrity move on my part, or in my opinion, when Greg Simpson was praised for breaking the law and it being swept under the rug. Innovation and accomplishment. I mean, the sheriff's department I've been, again, actively involved, taking my daughter down there to tour the place and seeing some of the things. They have drones. And I think Chris has taken the sheriff's department and has utilized a lot of new age technology, new age things, and brought it to the sheriff's department to keep Clermont County and competitive with other advanced counties.
Okay. Louisa.
Same thing. Chris has never lied to me. I mean, I believe him to be a man of high integrity, honest, straightforward. He doesn't beat around the bush. He says it as it is. Innovation. I know he is innovative. I know there are a lot of things that he's going to bring to this county when he becomes sheriff. I know that mental health is one of them, something that he's been working on. Unfortunately, I can't rate him on that right now. And accomplishments, I mean, I really don't know much about the sheriff's department that he's accomplished in there, so I couldn't rate it. But otherwise, overall, he's an A person to me.
So I gave him a B, so I gave him because I think on the one hand, he's, this Greg Simpson move of disgust. Okay. But on the other hand, the sheriff's office could have charged Greg Simpson without the prosecutor if they wanted to. And I do think, I think very highly of Chris. So I think that the sheriff's office, the thing I have with the sheriff's office is that their stay in the lane mentality a lot of times causes nothing to really change in the political system for the better. We saw that with Jesse Kramick. Everybody knew what was going on with Jesse Kramick, and these things managed to just get kind of fluffed away. And so I think Chris has a tremendous amount of potential. I think he hates the bullshit. I think he absolutely hates the bullshit.
Absolutely.
And he's demonstrated more integrity. Hopefully I gave him the highest rating that I gave him of anybody, on integrity. And I just think that there's, it's a tough thing. And at some point, this county, some of these political things need to get kind of cleaned up and not swept under the rug when they come forward.
I think a B from Chris Hicks is a standing ovation from Simon.
Well, okay. I have to go back and see that I give everybody an A. So that might be the highest. So let's keep rolling here. The next one is Paul Camphouse. So Paul Camphouse is the municipal clerk. So we've got an A for integrity and the question marks. Louise, what? B's, and I gave F. So I'm like opposite. Okay. So I'll tell you why. Let me do mine, and then we'll go work up, because Bill, you gave the most positive, at least in the integrity. I just haven't seen the guy. I don't know what the guy's doing. When he ran against Tim Rudd, there was supposedly going to be a new docketing system, that was going to give more access to the citizens. I don't know what happened to any of this stuff. I know they've done the credit card thing. So I just kind of innovation accomplishment. Maybe he's done a bunch of stuff. Hey, Paul, come to a meeting. Tell people about it. Show your face. I don't know if I'd recognize him out of a lineup if he walked by me now, because he basically went into where they now file. Okay, Louisa, your view.
So B is good. I mean, Paul has changed a lot in the municipal court. And I think we go, again, if you don't have dealings with these people, then you don't see the integrity, innovation, accomplishment. But he has changed a lot in the municipal court. I mean, even the clerks are much nicer than they were before under Tim Rudd. I know that, to pay a ticket is a lot easier to do now than before when Tim Rudd was there. I've never had a problem with Paul. I think he's accomplished a lot, considering the fact who he took over from. So I gave him a B on overall.
Like, what's a real quick example of something that he's changed? Or maybe I'm just ignorant.
So paying a ticket. I mean, before, if on the weekends, like if you worked and you had to pay a speeding ticket, you just did not have the ability to do it on the weekend. You'd have to pay it on a Friday or a Monday. And he has made that possible now.
So they have Saturday hours now?
Do you pay tickets? I mean, you get them all dismissed. So,
well, you've got to know people, Bill. You didn't know that?
So I'll put an asterisk by mine on Paul, because like I said, I just don't know, nobody tells. It's a great point that you made, Louisa. Nobody sends out a newsletter saying what they accomplished. But Bill, give your rundown.
There's been a couple of things I've been involved with and know Paul has changed. I consider those more integrity moves, because there were residual things that were kind of broken when Tim was running things. For example, hold on check thing. That was one example. But I've talked to Paul a lot. I don't know what, like you guys, I don't know what has really been accomplished. It just seems like the municipal court is still being ran relatively the same, with minimal changes. But from an integrity standpoint, I've always considered Paul a man of integrity. And I'm just not taking my opinion on these. These are other people that I've talked to about these elected officials, and I've morphed my grade into things that and discussions I've had about other elected officials.
Okay. All right. So let's go on. The next one up is going to be my close personal friend, Alan Freeman. Let's see if I gave, okay. D, 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 F, a lot of question marks. I gave Fs, Bill, why don't you go first on Alan Freeman, since you had the most positive outlook on Alan with Ds?
Alan is, I think he was looking for a job, and he got a job, and it'll be interesting to see how he changes common pleas, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the common pleas court. For example, the fact that people are sitting in jail, whether you're guilty or not guilty, they're sitting in jail an extra day because they can't get bonded out past 4 p.m. That's ridiculous. Other counties have the ability to bond people out. So a person that may be innocent is spending an extra day in jail. That's an issue. We'll see if Freeman changes it. But I have not, based on the things I've seen in Pierce, the acquisition of Amelia coming in was an absolute cluster and a disaster. I didn't give him a high regard. And as far as integrity, Alan has lied to me on a few occasions. So, unfortunately, the grade is what the grade is.
All right, Louisa.
I gave him an F for integrity. I think it's very poor. I mean, I've tried to have a conversation with him about the householder money, and he never gives me a straight answer. It's kind of always just wishy-washy. And I don't get that fuzzy, warmy feeling when I talk to him. I can't grade him on innovation and accomplishment because, Barbara, who's the clerk of courts right now in the Common Pleas Court, I mean, I really would like to see a big change. So let's see if Alan can do it. I don't know if he can.
I have the personal experience of two things. One is the $50,000 thing with the householder stuff, which he still lives in some la land. There was a saturation media ad buy of TV commercials, and you were unaware of it. Like you missed it. But also, there was a open meetings case where when they brought Pete Cambelis in, they had improper meetings. That was another Alan thing. So there's just this stream of just a kind of a slimy feeling. I have a slimy feeling about whether that's fair or not. I have a slimy feeling about Alan Freeman, and I think it's a huge disappointment that he is going to be the Common Pleas Clerk of Courts. And here's even worse. I think he has already announced that he's not going to give up his trustee position, and he's going to be one of these. I can guarantee you, unless the pressure's on him, he's going to be one of these absentee elected officials collecting a paycheck while not coming to work. And one thing about Barb Wiedenbein, the current clerk, love her or hate her, she came to work. As far as I could tell, when I would be in Batavia, it's not like I watched this, but you always saw David Painter, because they're big white vehicles. She had a white Cadillac and had a place with her name on it. And Painter's truck's always there when I drive through Batavia, and they're both big vehicles. And so, let's see if Alan Freeman shows up for work or just collects a paycheck. But, clerk of court should be a full-time job. It's a full-time payroll, full-time job. And I just can't believe the people in Pierce Township, with this whole householder thing, I just don't get it. So, okay. Anything else on Alan before I move to the last of the 10?
Yep.
Okay. So the next, the last of the 10 is Tim Rudd. Okay. So I win the lowest grader. Okay. But let me go first. Let you guys end on a positive note. None of us are screaming here. We're not sending them to the Rhodes Scholars. I just have some experiences with him where he shut down the docketing system completely in municipal court. It's his constant running around looking for, an office, that he really didn't bring much of any innovation in the clerk for eons. and then all of a sudden this whole, like, all these things were going to happen when he's up for election. I just don't, see where he's done much. And I still to this day believe that people knew more about Archie Wilson and some other things during his party chair era than we're led to believe. And it's just very unfortunate that I don't feel like, I know I'm going back a little bit, but as party chair, I think there were some things that he could have done that would have meant the party's in a better position now had they been addressed back when Tim Rudd was chair. By the way, he was probably a better chair than the last few chairs, but the culture developed a lot under him. All right. So who wants to go next? Bill or Louisa? You get to pick.
Bill, you can go.
Tim, again, I think I like Tim on a personal level. I think that his time in the clerk's office was stale. I think there was a lot he could have accomplished. He did show up to work. And I did grade him a little lower on integrity because the way he ran his campaign against Fraley was, I don't know. I'll show up and sometimes those types of campaigns, they don't work. And I do think it backfired on him. And I tried to explain to him that same thing, that, hey, this is not the right approach. But
well, I don't think he offered much other than that.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot there. So I'm not going to give him an F because I do think Tim Rudd, he's a good person. I think that, again, you have to couple these grading, not just not what type of person are they too. And I think I've gotten to know these people on a different level than you have, Chris, for over the past several years. So I think that's why I'm able to give them a little higher remarks, because I've seen them in another light. But I do think that the grades I've been giving people are fair. They'll disagree, and I probably got a few less Facebook friends, but I don't care.
Well, I think, I would say that I have known these people on a level that's different than just a personal. So my things are very much on actual things, like, not personality things or not in them. So I feel my scores are very fair, and I'm betting you I will continue. I won't lose any Facebook friends because these people weren't my Facebook friends to start with.
That's not true. I've seen a few of these elected officials on your Facebook.
I think that all these people, since this was the last one, the key message from this is, why don't all these elected officials every year be saying, what am I doing in my office to demonstrate integrity, to demonstrate innovation, to demonstrate accomplishment? It's the kind of thing, it's much more complex doing evaluations in a real job in a company. But if every elected official, in Clermont County would do those things, what am I doing for integrity, innovation, and accomplishment in my office every year? Think how much better off we would be. I mean, just because a lot of times just thinking about it, if you know what the evaluation is going to be, I was always on a sales quota. If I know what the quota is, I know what I'm shooting for. I know that I have what I have to do. I need to know it at the beginning. Okay, so let's go. Those were the 10. I'm going to go back to here real quick. We're late on time. I want to go quick. We got couple quick topics. Any closing thoughts that either of you want to have on the 10 county level elected officials?
I think that they all should implement a newsletter, just like Adam Bird does. I think it's very informative. Then at least you know what they're working on, and the county knows where they're going with things. I mean, if we don't have a personal relationship with these officials, how is the people in the county going to know what they're doing, what they're not doing? So I think they should have a newsletter.
I think that's a great thing. Should be almost like a county-wide newsletter, yep. Like for that all of the county officials have their help. If they knew that every quarter, let's say it was once a quarter, they had to write a little article on what the accomplishments have been in their office in the last quarter, it's going to make them better elected officials, just having to do that.
A report.
If Alan Freeman doesn't deliver his article and there's a blank page for Alan Freeman, that's going to cause him to do something next time. We
need a report. We need a report. I don't care if it's every 3 months, but give us a report of what's going on. Okay,
just for a second, Bill, anything you want to say before I go back to the charts?
No, I think what we graded was about accurate, in my opinion.
You notice that I'm gonna go back here and all these had like an overall at the bottom. Now that I've actually seen them, what I'm gonna do with you guys tomorrow is I'll do like an overall. I'll kind of average them down there, and then get back to you. And I'll also say, well, we like the Congress. We have the right to change a vote if you want to change one of your votes because something you heard, on the call, and then we can have the kind of the final official scorecard. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris. One of the things that I think we do need to just say, kind of what we were discussing earlier today. These elected officials. A lot of times with these 3 calls that we've had, it seems like we complain a lot. And I understand that's the perceptive, that we do seem to be very negative. The problem is there's a lot of negative things going on, unfortunately. And you're like, well, how do you create solutions? I am a solutions-based person. The problem is to create solutions, you've got to have people admitting that there's a problem. And most of these elected officials will not concede to the fact that there's a problem. So you don't have anything to work off of. Like, you can't go to them and say, like Louisa say, you need a newsletter. They'll shake their heads, yes, shake your hand, great idea, walk away, and there'll never be a newsletter.
Right.
That's the issue. Is it's a heart problem. The problem is deeper with each of these individual elected officials. They have forgotten that they are accountable to the public. They're accountable to the voters. They think that they're elites. They think that they're not accountable. They've forgotten who they report to. It's like you said earlier, Chris, they report to us. We don't report to them.
And we, unfortunately, I think, have elected officials that are not necessarily, the sharpest bulbs on the tree sometime. And we have a class, and they never go away. Just like at the federal level, at the local level, there aren't term limits, but maybe you don't need to be auditor for 30 years. You get people, maybe you don't need to be this. Part of innovation is turnover. And if these people are all top-notch people, then they shouldn't be afraid of moving at some point out of the public sector. Like, get a paycheck from some of these people. You wonder, I know Linda Fraley was a hairdresser before she became auditor, and then got her CPA, and it's like an inspiring story. But these people never go. We never see elected people leaving to go into private sector and then coming back. And I think if we're patriots and we think about the Constitution and what the founding fathers intended, they intended that at all levels, that the people that were politicians were just not a permanent class of people.
Well, I think there's a defined division, like between, people like us, the 3 of us, that want transparency and expose and hold officials accountable. And then you've got the officials, right? The politicians, and they make it their career to stay in there. That's why it becomes a swamp. That's why it becomes a buddy system. If there's a position available, well, I'll push you in there because, then you owe me this. And that is what we need to get away from. I always say,
I want to move us on here. But you made me think of something. Is I actually have heard politicians here in Clermont County saying this attitude of like, well, why do I need to be in the office? Everything's running good. That they don't need to be there because they got everything running good. Well, it's like, okay, if everything's running good, why don't you work at the counter then? So that if you don't need a leader in the back room figuring out the process and innovation and the solutions bill for going forward, well, then why don't you work at the front counter so the taxpayers don't have to pay for one more person? And that's not the mentality. It's not a business continuous improvement mentality. And this process we're doing here could help nudge it towards that.
If you allow it at county level, it goes all the way up to Washington, D.C.
It does. It starts here. They learn here. They learn at the low level. Okay, I'm going to go forward here. And I have 2 other topics, and I want to just very quickly, this thing about animal shelter, because it's a hot topic. This call is not about animal shelter, but it was on the list. And I have 2 questions here, and I just want to do this very quickly. Should it return to Humane Society control? And is it Painter seems to be in the crosshairs? Is that right, wrong, or both? Okay, so, all right, real quick, round robin, like 10 seconds. Should it go? Let's go each of us. Should the animal shelter go back to Humane Society control? Yes, no, or undecided?
Yes.
I say no because I know more about the situation when you look at the salaries and what was going on, where the money was.
Well, I say yes. So okay. I'm going to flip back to here. Is Painter in the crosshairs? Obviously, he's getting the flack on this. I think, Bill, you don't think that's fair. I think it's completely fair. I don't know where you stand on it, Louise.
Well, no, that's not how I think all three commissioners are responsible for this disaster. You know, I'm an avid animal lover. This guy right here on my lap, he was abandoned. Somebody left him at a house. He wouldn't even come up to people. It's taken me months to nurture him to where he's even, not peeing on carpets and things. I mean, it's taken patience. You can't beat the animals and things like that. I love animals. And I'm telling you, there's more to the animal shelter situation than what's at face value. There really is. And it is a throw Painter under the bus situation right now. And I do believe wholeheartedly that Claire is a part of it, of this disaster.
So you think it's unfair that Painter's being singled out by activists and so forth for his role?
Singled out, yes. But I do believe there is an answer in how we can fix the animal shelter issue at the county.
Louisa, do you have comments on this?
Yeah, I think it's a management issue. I think we have a management problem at the animal shelter. And, it's been run very poorly. And you know what? If it doesn't work, just send it back. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Why are we holding on to something and trying to make it work? If it's not working, let the Humane Society.
Well, I think we're unique in the area, or maybe in the state, of this government-controlled animal shelter. And to me, the minute that they got rid of cats, when it became government-controlled, the first thing that went was cats. And so I think one of the big differences, it's like typical entrepreneurship, these humane societies, I don't think the problem was the humane societies. I think you had the Clermont to the Rescue, which was the generation before. They got kind of like, they've always been underfunded. And then Clermont Cares thought that the commissioners were going to really work with them. Then they realized pretty quickly on, and I still point out to this day, I've learned from these people that more money got spent on animals when Clermont Cares, the last year that Clermont Cares, than now. The county spends way more money, but typically in these operations, the humane societies raise about half, basically double the amount of money, because they do fundraising. That's kind of not happening the same way now. I know there have been some donations, but it's ended up with less money getting spent on animals and no cats. And I think it's embarrassing, for our county, because Clermont Cares has, I believe, been successful running other animal shelters like the Hamilton County one. So I don't know. I don't think it's them. But okay.
I think there's a lot. I think there's an answer here. I've told David this. More needs to be done down there. Absolutely. And I think the community could come, instead of the bickering and fighting, I think the community could come together in a panel and discuss this in a mature manner. But going down there like that lady did in that meeting, she knew exactly that Painter's rarely misses a commissioner's meeting. He was at a commissioner's event. He wasn't on vacation. He was actually at an event out in East Ohio. She knew exactly what meeting Painter was going to miss.
I don't know about this. That you're saying the activists came there to vent on Painter specifically because he wasn't going to be there? That's a pretty.
There were two other commissioners. I mean, there were two other commissioners there. How are you going to bang on one commissioner?
Because David Painter was the one, Bill, that proposed that they take the animal shelter private, because he personally proposed it. So the community around animals blames him because he was the person that forwarded that idea.
But Chris, two other commissioners could say, the heck with you.
But it's like, why is the air cover for him? Okay, so at some point, I think he needs to admit at this point, because frankly, it's unbelievable the amount of time and energy this whole thing's wasting. You've got the assistant county administrator who says she doesn't know how to run animal shelters, spending 70% of her time there. What every county does? They outsource it to a humane society, because then you get people that love animals. And people that love animals, and I don't mean to say that they can be, abused per se, but when you get people that love animals, like my wife, she doesn't do anything there, and you ask them like, oh, we need somebody to stay all night in the shelter with this dog. And
And
some
they will.
volunteer will do that. Okay.
Yep.
And that's why you want people doing animal things that at their core love animals. Okay. Because then, and you don't want them to be on rules about how many hours they can work and overtime and all that kind of crap, because you want them to be the people that love animals. And I think that both organizations, Clermont to the Rescue and Clermont Animal Cares, were people that loved animals. They're very different people, by the way.
Did it work before? Did it work?
Well,
before?
and Clermont Animal Cares runs they run the Hamilton County shelter.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to throw a challenge to everybody watching and you guys as well. Call down to all these Clermont Cares and all these places. Tell them that you know of a dog that's been thrown against the wall and beaten.
Clermont Cares, why would you call Clermont Cares, Bill? They have no contract or anything in
the
Clermont
Humane
County.
Society. I'm sorry, the Humane Society. Or any...
There's no Humane Society that has a contract. That's why we're unique as a county.
I'm saying just call it the Humane Society. There is a Humane Society. There's a phone number for one.
There's multiple Humane Societies. They tend to be, one of them runs the shelter in a given county.
But call them and tell them a dog's being abused. See how quickly they're willing to help.
Call the shelter and tell them a horse is being abused, and nobody will do shit because it costs a lot of money to bring a horse back to health.
That's not true.
The county doesn't want to spend the money.
Luis and I just met with a lady where the county came out and took all of her horses.
Yeah, it's being charged.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. I don't think that was the reason. So the woman you talk with is not, wasn't some big deep, So all right. So we're going to move on from this topic, and we're going to have some different disagreements, and this could be a topic in and of itself, I think. Okay. So I'm going to go to I think it's the last topic, and this is really just my vent. And I appreciate you guys humoring me at least on this, and you will be able to comment, on what. But in the appeals court thing, I'm not going to get into it. That I basically got my ass handed to me. This judge, Stephen Powell, first there's a footnote in there because I had said something that I was like, basically despised by a lot of the Republicans in Clermont County. You guys might be aware of that, And then I said I was kind of like the Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz, but I couldn't hold a candle to either of those people. So he had a comment about that, and I'm going to go forward here. And this is the thing that just really irks me. And I want to say, because if we're conservatives, either way, judges should not, their opinions, there should be about, I like what, Jessica Little said, the facts and the law. Okay. Step one is the facts. And step two is how does the law apply to the facts? But this comment from him that I'm going to put up here, or as Jeff Corcoran, the chairman of the CCRC, testified to at the hearing on Hick's motion for preliminary injunction, stated, Hick's off-the-wall and outrageous value system does not help advance the interests of the CCRC and is otherwise not productive to the Republican Party. We agree. What the hell is the appeals court doing? I'm either right or wrong on the law. What part of that has anything to do with the court agreeing or not whether my views are productive for the Republican Party? Could you imagine if these Republican judges did that with the Democrat before them? And said, oh, yeah, we agree that that person's views aren't productive to the Democrat Party. I just get kind of outraged when you see this in our court system. This is at the appeals court. Notwithstanding whether the ruling was right, wrong, or indifferent, is what the hell did this have to do with anything? Whether somebody apparently my precinct thought my political views, because one thing I think you guys would know, my political views in my precinct are very well known. I'm not like an unknown individual that just slipped in. You guys have any comments on this or anything that you've encountered that is the courts where this kind of political attitude comes into the writings or determinations of the court?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a magistrate take away my passport without absolutely no reason. Not that he said, Miss McQueen, I think you're a flight risk. You need to hand me your passport. Not, Miss McQueen, does your grandson have a passport that you might be able to take him out the country? No, he used his podium and his power to show. And by the way, this magistrate is a Democrat, knew that I was a Republican, and he used his power to show me that he was judge. He was magistrate.
Technically, Louisa, you are an African American. When you really,
yes, I am.
You are
Latina.
So you could
like Elon Musk.
Yeah, you could have played the. I would have went back on him. I mean, that whole situation was a mess. These judges, again, it goes back to what I said before. Elected officials, this includes the judges, they don't believe that they're accountable to anyone. Right. They think that they do what they want. And when you do file a complaint with the Judiciary Committee, nothing happens.
Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is no accountability, and that's what has to change. We have to somehow figure out, and the legislators in this state, which is Republican ran, could fix this problem. They absolutely could fix this problem. And the issue that we have is we just don't have enough people that care, that want to rally behind this stuff. If you had 10 people calling state reps fighting about this, they're going to get blown off. You have 1,000 people standing out front of state reps' house demanding something. I guess what they're gonna take it.
Well, I think that a lot of this has to do with the character of people. There was just to close on this and move on to close the call here, the stream. I was talking with somebody for a pretty good length of time about the vaxes and stuff like this yesterday, and then they were talking about things they want to do in court, and I'm like, it's never going to work. I mean, we all have the experience of how court works if you're an outsider. It's not. But then I point out to them, like, if you look at the courts, they're the ones that most of all of our government jumped immediately on the COVID bandwagon in all regards. And I think to this day, I haven't been there in probably 2 weeks, maybe. It hasn't been that long. There's still the temperature camera at the common pleas court. I don't know if there's at the municipal court. I didn't pay attention there, but these restrictions and stuff, the courts tend to be on those, and they're not. They don't push back. So it's like you're going to get the court to say that some mandate is not constitutional when the court jumps hook, line, and sinker into everybody has to wear a mask immediately and can't come in unless their temperature's in a certain range.
When did our standards drop so low? That's what I want to know. When did the standard of being a judge or a magistrate, that you're supposed to go by the law books to make a judgment call on anything that comes before you, when did those standards drop so low and become a personal issue? That's what I want to know. That's why the other day I said I have no faith in the judicial system. And now I'm starting to meet other people out there that have reached out to us, and I am just in awe. I don't even know how some people have ended up in the situation they have ended up in. It makes no sense.
Well, we're going to all we'll talk offline about whether we all want to kick in some money for a half track or a Sherman tank or anything. So I don't know, Louisa, if you were here when the old days of John Coyne and the
I heard about it.
Military vehicles parked in front of the courthouse.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm going to go back to the charts here real quick and just close out. We can, I would like to just close out if we can, maybe highlight a couple comments before we close, just because we're running so long. We would like to highlight comments at the end. I want to remind people again that we have an event on Saturday, August 31st. It's definitely going to be me, Bill Thomas, and Dennis Cooper. Byron Baxter would be there if he could make it, but he can't. Dennis, I'm me. Bill Thomas is Bill Thomas. Dennis Cooper was a former, the past Central Committee chair. Byron Baxter is a current Central Committee vice chair. David Painter is the Executive Committee chair currently, and Jeff Corcoran is a Central Committee chair. We'd love to see one of them show up to show that they care about reform.
You know what, Chris? Can I interrupt you? Why don't you have a woman on that panel? We have lots of women in the committee.
Because we don't have in the party leadership, we don't have any
Hold on. Dennis Cooper used to be
a woman.
Dennis Cooper used to be a chair, but he's not. He's just a committeeman now. You need to start including some women.
We invited, as a side note, early on, Greg Simpson and Gloria Kirker got invited and both declined.
Well, there you are. Invite another woman.
Okay, so we can put them back on here if they're out there. God only knows, they might be listening. What do you think, guys? You think they'll listen at some point to this?
Possibly.
They would love them to show up. And frankly, I'd love to get more people, that somebody who is wants to represent basically the position that things are good as is. Because I don't think Dennis or Bill or I are going to do that. We're going to have ideas for reform and improvement. And I'd like to hear, people participate coming from a different perspective. Okay. So I'm going to go back here and see if, before we close here, a couple comments, if I do the comment box right.
I think Leslie had talked about if they were planning on doing solar panels in Clermont County. I had heard that they weren't going to do that.
Let's save that because that's a whole different topic,
Mhm.
which is, solar and stuff like this, just because it's not a topic on this call. It's a good point. There's this Joe who I think I know Joe thinks that we should do, if I could find it here. My thing is messed up.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for
We
giving
should have
me
created Ken Geis. What do you think, guys? Maybe we could do a whole thing on Ken Geis. I don't have any opposition to doing that. And if you want to see some differences of opinions between the three of us that will test our ability to get to on this, we could do that. We could do something on Ken Geis. I'm good. What do you think, Bill? We could talk about it offline. We can do a topic. We can do a thing on Ken Geis someday.
I don't know if you're ready for that yet.
I'm ready for it. We'll do it right after this call. Okay. And then what else here? If you guys see anyone, there's some comments about the candidates and so forth, and I don't want to get into, by the way, I'm going to put this up here, and this could be a topic we would cover if I take it correctly. It says, when they make it an emergency, all rules are gone and they make it an emergency. This is a really good point. When you go to meetings of government, our government is in the decayed state. There are supposed to be 3 readings of legislation at 3 different meetings, and then it's voted on in the 3rd meeting. And that's very wise, and that's part of the founders' design that cascaded to Ohio, because these people in office aren't supposed to be dictators. They're supposed to be getting input from the citizens, and that's what the 3 readings were. Like the town crier reading stuff on the square so that the people know to come back and give comments. But Robin's comment here, a lot of times now, all these governments just do everything's an emergency, and that means they can bypass the readings of legislation and just vote on them. And it's complete bullshit, the things that they call emergencies. Emergency should mean like the roof blew off of the firehouse and is laying out in the middle of the street, and we need to pass everything so we can hire a contractor to put the roof back on. That's an emergency. Not everything gets declared an emergency, but that could be a topic on how legislation works or doesn't work at township and that's mainly at village levels that emergencies come up all the time. Is there any comments here that I didn't hit on that you guys want me to hit on before we close?
No, I think
I'm just looking here, everybody's got good comments, and so we'll talk about doing a Ken Geis thing. We can do things on a legislative delegation, etc. All right. With all that said, guys,
I think Joe must be one of Luis's cronies.
Who?
That Joe guy, he graded you an A.
I know. Thanks, Joe.
All right. So that'll be another way. The panel that grades us. Okay. All right. Anything else? Closing thought, Bill.
No. Other than I'll say the same thing I always say. People need to get involved. Get your heads out of the sand and do something. Don't just sit on the sidelines. If you are griping or you don't like the way things are, get involved. Do something. And
all right.
Chris, you got the email so people can reach out.
Yeah, I will. Louisa, final comment.
Just, people make sure who you're voting for. Start voting for their works and not their words, because these politicians will feed you any bullshit that they can. Just
try to get it to what have they actually done.
Right.
And then I'll leave it with that. I'm going to go to what Bill said here. Thank you, Bill, for reminding me. That's about the event. So remember, this is the email, ClermontU@reformClermontGOP.com. ClermontU@reformClermontGOP.com. If you have a situation, you have a court situation, you want to think a topic we should do, any of that kind of stuff, you can always come here, send an email to that address, and we can take it from there. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. Have a great rest of the evening. Good night, Louisa. Good night, Bill. Good night, Chris.